It's quite a relief to be up here because I get to tell all of you at once what happened to my leg. So when I speak to you, I don't need to repeat myself. I tripped. What's that? I spit it on. That's pretty helpful, isn't it? On. Yeah, because that. Can you hear me now? I tripped whilst running on a mountain. There we go. Okay, so we've heard quite a lot in this conference so far about how Bitcoin has been created as an antidote to a broken financial system, and the cartels of the banks causing people to lose money in future generations because of quantitative easing, etc. Well, I'm going to tackle another cartel, which I think is actually scientifically proven to be causing much more damage to society than the financial sector, and that is the energy sector. So consider for a moment, imagine a government were to finance a nuclear power station, 600 trillion rand nuclear power station. That is forcing a fixed energy cost onto future generations of people. Now, solar energy is to the world of energy what Bitcoin is to the world of finance. Solar energy is distributed, is democratic, is decentralized. So let's look at what this means in an African context. So Africa is a special place, we know that. It's the sunniest continent on Earth, but it's also the least electrified. And there's 650 million people in Africa without any electricity. So even in South Africa, where we do have electricity, we're actually lucky to have Eskom. And they have coal power stations. Now, coal power is the dirtiest form of electricity production on a utility scale in the world. Is anyone here from Nigeria? Is this scene here with generators lined up in streets burning diesel fuel, is that a common sight in Nigeria? This is the dirtiest form of energy generation there is. With this combination of sunlight with dirty energy, surely the solar power has to be the solution. Because a solar panel installed in South Africa generates twice as much electricity as it would do installed in the UK. And with the embedded carbon per kilowatt hour in South Africa double that of the UK, to install a solar panel in South Africa saves 4 times the carbon. So why install solar panels in Europe when they can be installed in Africa where the electricity is needed and it's better as a piece of technology? But the problem is lack of access to finance. I mean, is obviously a demand for energy, so where is the money coming from to finance commercial and industrial scale solar? On the very small end of the scale, there are lots of organizations operating in Africa that distribute solar home systems and solar lanterns for residential applications. And that's kind of taken care of. On the other end of the scale, you've got utility scale solar plants, and there are many financial organizations and large banks that will happily line up to sell electricity on a utility basis. But if you're a community or a factory and you're looking to go solar, banks are not interested in lending you for installing a solar plant because the due diligence required doesn't make it worth their while, the projects are too small, and the regulatory background is too uncertain or too less advanced on this continent generally for the banks to sign a check. So there has to be something in the middle to finance the commercial industrial scale solar. And money isn't the problem. Worldwide, there is $3.4 trillion been pledged from individuals and institutions to fund clean energy. So lack of money isn't the issue. It's a lack of a platform that connects people with money to solar projects. But let's look at a couple of other problems. So in Europe and the United States, I mean, this is a block of flats in Scotland. So other than the shitty architecture is the even worse weather. And if you lived in one of those apartments and you wanted to own solar panels, you actually can't. There's nowhere to install them. And even if you had wealth, imagine you're Donald Trump in New York City and you live in a very glamorous tower block, you still can't own solar panels even though you can afford them because you doesn't have a roof to put them on. Now imagine you were really determined to invest in solar panels and you start going on the stock market and trying to find some solar panels to invest into. SunPower, for example, US-based company, produced the highest quality solar panels in the industry. Their share price is pretty much in an all-time low. Even though the solar industry is the biggest it's ever been, it's growing exponentially, it's still very complicated to invest in solar panels. Which company do you choose, and how do you invest into the stock market? It's quite complicated. So I propose the solution is borderless solar ownership. people from anywhere in the world purchasing solar panels that power Africa and then earn income from them. The whole payment rail is Bitcoin because it allows very low-cost transactions to go overseas and back again in very low denominations. But Bitcoin has got a reputation for requiring a lot of energy. Andreas Antonopoulos, in his previous talk, suggested that the actual energy consumption of the Bitcoin mining network is 350 megawatts. Now, if that energy consumption is primarily in China, where it's a coal-based grid, then the annual carbon emissions of Bitcoin mining is double that of the entire world's fleet of Boeing 747s if they're flying around the world constantly non-stop. So that kind of gives you an idea. I'm cheating with this picture because the engines on that Qantas jet are actually on fire, but it does help me illustrate my point about fumes. But financing, okay, so Bitcoin is money that's created on a silicon chip that's powered by electricity. So what happens if you take that currency and use it to finance a silicon chip that produces electricity, which is then sold for money? You're then in the realms of an entirely new economic paradigm that is totally solid state, totally passive, and totally clean. Now, 1 Bitcoin could finance 1 kilowatt of solar power in South Africa. Now, the amount of energy that it took to create that Bitcoin is paid off in 17 weeks. So you've then got 24 and a half years of free energy financed by the Bitcoin that was mined in the first place. And that Bitcoin is still going around the market, being traded from person to person, so it's not destroyed. The value of Bitcoin creates this new cyclical, clean, silicon-based economy. So I went into Barclays Bank in the UK, and I sat down, I wanted a £10,000 loan, and they asked me what it was for. And I said, well, I want to start a new financial system that's powered by solar energy, which streams monetized sunshine around the world 365 days a year. I got a call the next day telling me that they're not going to give me a bank account and that I can't get a loan as a result. So I turned to Indiegogo, and I launched the Sun Exchange on there, and I raised £16,000 from 106 people around the world from 30 countries to kickstart this. And of course, because it's an Indiegogo campaign, I had to create a video, which I'm just going to show you now.
Leonardo da Vinci designed a system to harness the sun's power in the 15th century. It's absurd that 600 years later, we're still creating electricity using fossil fuels that negatively impact our planet and to which the world economy is tightly bound. We're so dependent on electricity in every aspect of our lives. The question is not how do we reduce that dependence, but how can we make electricity cheaper and more accessible from sources that do not harm the environment? Sunshine is free, but creating electricity from it isn't. It does take money. Solar panel prices are at their lowest in history, but for many businesses and homes, the benefits of a solar energy system are simply inaccessible. People trying to save for the future through conventional banking are often disappointed by low interest rates and what their savings are being used to fund. So, wave goodbye to the petrodollar and welcome the dawn of solar-powered money, the Sun Exchange. The Sun Exchange connects people wanting to invest in solar energy with people that want to access it. Think of it like the stock exchange, with sunlight. Through the Sun Exchange, schools, businesses, factories, and even whole neighbourhoods can achieve their goals of going solar and reducing running costs. As long as the sun keeps shining, the money keeps flowing. The Sun Exchange hosts solar projects worldwide, so you can choose the portfolio of investments upon which the sun will never set. All you need is a bank account or a Bitcoin wallet and web access. Whether you want to invest in or access solar power, the Sun Exchange is the platform upon which to improve your financial situation whilst making the world a cleaner, fairer place.
Okay, so the campaign, as I said, went well. We raised £16,000, which is 6,000 more than I thought I would require to get the company started. And then we built our own crowdfunding platform for financing solar plants. We have to do it in a very, very specific way because we're allowing direct ownership of solar panels in specific solar projects. So just here is a snapshot of a project we've just completed. So it's for the Tyre Corporation. They recycle car tyres in Rustenburg. They needed a 45 kilowatt solar plant, which would cost around 1.1 million rand. Each solar panel is actually made up of 60 cells. And if you take the total cost of the whole solar plant, you can break that down into the cost per cell. And then we sell those solar cells at a price of 105 Rand per cell. So if you purchase a solar cell, you have direct ownership of that. Your solar cell produces electricity, and you get the income generated from that electricity. It's actually acquired through you taking your solar cell and leasing it to us, and we then lease the whole solar plant onto the end user. So it's actually a leasing arrangement. But the solar plant can only go ahead once all of the solar cells, the physical solar cells in the project have been sold. So you can see here that in this project there were 10,380 solar cells, and they were purchased by 102 people. They were purchased by people all around the world, Australia, United States, throughout Europe, throughout South Africa, through the Far East, all been purchased, and this solar plant is being built this week. We also offer an additional incentive, so anybody that purchases a solar cell is also allocated an allocation of solar coin, which is a pre-mined digital currency token, which for every 1 megawatt hour of electricity that you as an owner of a solar asset are entitled to your proportion of solar coin, and this is allocated to you automatically as a secondary bonus top-up on your income. So on our first project, which we launched around this time last year, we launched a campaign to solar power a school in Stellenbosch. It's for the Stellenbosch Waldorf School. We raised 400,000 Rand to build a 15 kilowatt solar plant, and payments came from 70 individuals from 30 countries, again, and have now solar powered this school. The school's running costs have been reduced by around 10 or 15%, and the owners of those solar cells are receiving equivalent to an annual 10% return on their original principal, which was laid down to purchase the solar cells. So that's the lease rental income that's being generated from that solar plant. And that was the first time in the world ever that Bitcoin had been used to finance a solar plant. It was also the first time in South Africa's history that a solar plant had ever been crowdfunded. But the people who own those solar cells are getting paid monthly. We send an invoice to the school, they pay the bill, and the revenue then goes to the owners of the solar cells. So how can we make that better? How do we increase the transparency? How do we make it so that people who have owned the solar cells are actually getting paid out in real time? Well, for this, we're building a blockchain smart contract, which controls the Bitcoin collection and distribution back to the cell owners. This offers confidence that somebody overseas knows that the smart contract, which is actually communicating to the smart meter on the solar plant, knows and records every time a unit of electricity has been produced and then sends it out every time that happens. And this happens autonomously for 20 years. It removes the Sun Exchange as an intermediary. It basically has a bot sitting on the Ethereum blockchain, which I'll get to in a minute, transferring the money from here to the owners. We're streaming African sunshine around the world that's been monetized. So I'm just going to hand over to my tame developer. We've unleashed him. And he's going to run you through some of the technology behind our blockchain application. So Lawrence, would you like to come up and tell the ladies and gentlemen what you've been up to?
Good afternoon. Okay, the Sun Exchange service that you see the architecture over there, it's all built in TypeScript with some HTML and CSS in there, and then obviously some solidity for the contract. If we go from the image from the bottom to the top, on the right-hand side, we've got CouchDB. That's for all the supplementary information. The blockchain is not a very good data store, so we tend to not keep the data there. We keep the data necessary for interacting with the Sun Exchange there, but that's it. So the names and the places and how many cells and whatever, that lives in the CouchDB database. On the left, we've got the interesting side, the Ethereum blockchain. At the moment, for the demo that you're going to see shortly, that chain is a chain that I hacked for speed so that the demo doesn't have to run for too long while the transactions are being mined. On the inside of the Sun Exchange DAO, it is exposing itself via Express.js and Node.js to the world outside. It contains some stuff on the right there called Davenport, which is just a library that I use to speak to the CouchDB database. But the actual interesting bit is the smart facade. The smart facade is a TypeScript library that we folded around the three contracts that the Sun Exchange consists of. It allows the TypeScript program to speak to those contracts as if they are just another TypeScript class. There are three contract types that the Sun Exchange Ethereum part is made up out of. The DAO contract belongs to the Sun Exchange. and it creates projects. The moment the project gets created, that project can accept, accept offers to buy cells. So somebody would come to the project contract and basically buy a cell from the project. When all the cells are sold, and at that point, that person will basically get access to an ownership contract on the Ethereum blockchain. The money that he paid for the cells will go into his ownership contract and sit there until such a time as the project is ready to be built. At that time, the money will flow out of the ownership contract into the project contract. The bit that needs to go to the DAO will go there. The guy that needs to install will get his bit. Insurance will be paid for, and whatever other fees are relevant to be paid. The owner will then the owner of the project itself, the electricity consumer, will pay for electricity that's generated by the plant, and the money will flow back to the owner account from where they can withdraw it and do with it whatever they would require. All of this is going to be demonstrated through an Angular 2 front end that in the real world we'll probably use something heavier, maybe Drupal. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So thanks for that, Lawrence. That's awesome. I definitely couldn't explain that as well as you did. So what we're going to show you now is, this is not our live website, but what is live is the power generation. Oh, hang on, let me just shut down the... Okay, so this isn't our live website. This is running on his laptop, but what is live is the power generation field. So this power generation field is live data currently, right now, coming from our solar plant in Cape Town. So today it's produced 25 kilowatt hours, and it's generating 12.37 kilowatts of power right now. So on the off-taker's side, this is the person paying for the electricity. The text is quite small, so I'm going to describe what's actually happening. So on the off-taker's side, they've paid a prepaid balance into an account. So it's a prepaid meter. Now the smart meter is talking to the solar plant, and each time a kilowatt hour has been used, it takes some Ethereum token from the prepaid account, and it goes into the day account. Each day there's a separate transaction that's opened, and therefore the people who earn that income know that income is theirs because it's already on an open transaction on the blockchain. So what we're going to be doing is using the Lightning Network to open a transaction in the morning. Each time a kilowatt hour is used, it's recorded. At the end of the day, the transaction is closed, and all that distribution goes to the owners. That gives them confidence that they actually get, it is their money each day, each time a kilowatt hour is consumed, but they actually get it at the end of the day. So what we've got here is, you can't really see it because the text is too small, but you can see the cell owners at the moment. We've got Ariana, Alexander, and Lucas. They've got an ownership of 10, 5, and 15 Ethereum's worth of solar cells, respectively. So that's the proportion to which the revenue is going to be distributed. Now, because I can't control what the sun does, we've had to create a button that says "Make it night." Now, when I click "Make it night," the smart contract detects that the solar plant has shut down for the day. It's going to close the transaction on the off-taker's side, and it's going to send that revenue to the cell owners. So I'm going to click it, but you're not going to be able to see the numbers because I think they're probably too small. And lo and behold, the balance on the off-taker's side is now going to be at 0. Any idea what's happening, Lawrence?
It's just mining the transaction.
Okay, fine. So the off-taker's account is now going to be at 0. They can see the generated charges have now been emptied, and the cell owners' wallets have been added up according to that day's income. And those people are all around the world. So that is a live solar plant. We haven't actually implemented... So that is a live solar plant. The smart contract isn't actually operating right now. We're still doing the payments manually once a month, but we are working on it, and you can get involved. So now let me just show you a project that we're currently doing. So this is a project for Crow. It's a wildlife rehabilitation center in KZN. They've been operating for 35 years. Their electricity is their biggest overhead. They have to keep their lights on 365 days a year. They have to have heating for the animals. They want to reduce their running costs. We can lease them a solar plant which will reduce their running costs by 31 rand cents per kilowatt hour. This was launched yesterday. We've currently sold 162 solar cells. and there's still about 3,500 available. And if you go here, if you want to, you can use Bitcoin. You can type in how many Bitcoin you want to send. So if I want to send 1 Bitcoin, I click there, and according to the price of Bitcoin right now, you can buy 162 solar cells. So you just ping your Bitcoin to that QR code, and then you have purchased solar cells. But what's actually happening is we track the value of Bitcoin. So during the crowd sale period, as the Bitcoin price goes up, so does your solar cell ownership. And at the end of the crowd sale, we close the crowd sale and allocate your solar cell denominations at that time. So on our last project, we closed the campaign. We sold all the solar cells purely on Bitcoin price increase, and then we closed the campaign purely of BTC price. So that is how to get involved, and you can do this now. So I'd hope that someone would like to spend some Bitcoin on investing into our solar plant. TheSunExchange.com. You need to sign up for an account first. You can't just send Bitcoin to us because we won't know who sent it to us. So you've got to follow the process. There's an order form. You type in your amount, and when you press order, we then get a notification that that Bitcoin denomination is on its way. When we receive it, it gets allocated into your account. So that's how it works, and I've been delighted to introduce you all, and thank you, everyone. So is there any questions?
Thanks very much.
So was that your question?
Over there. Yep.
Anyone? Okay.
The school's going to pay you in.
Rand.
So how you handle the conversion from the rand to the.
Okay, so they pay into a Rand account, and we pay out in Bitcoin at the Bitcoin price at the time. So if you're paying in Bitcoin, you're actually buying Rand, and we pay you out at the Bitcoin price at that time. So yes, if you're a hardcore Bitcoin user, you may be miffed that you've lost any Bitcoin price increase, but what we're trying to communicate is if you're sitting on hordes of Bitcoin wealth, it's doing nothing. What is the point on sitting on a large Bitcoin balance when you can actually put it to work, deploy it into the world, do good stuff, and then actually still make income from it? So that's what we're trying to say.
The front here, please.
So if I wanted to pay in Bitcoin, would you allow that?
Pardon?
If I wanted to pay in Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah. You can pay in Bitcoin, get paid out in Bitcoin. You can also pay in Rand and get paid out in Bitcoin. So one thing we found that's interesting is more people that have paid in Rand want paid back in Bitcoin. They're seeing this as a low-tech, easy way of getting a passive income stream of Bitcoin without having to know how to do anything technical. Even though it's actually quite simple, it removes that block of how to get Bitcoin because they're just getting it sent automatically.
Okay, cool. And what's the biggest project you've done?
That Thai Corporation project was 45 kilowatts, is 1.1 million Rand. So that's being installed now. But typically the projects we do are always going to be quite small because these are the projects which are unfunded. You can't go to a bank. Well, you can, but the debt's very expensive to finance that kind of solar plant. So you as a business owner don't want to take on a debt liability for a solar plant that's going to increase your overheads whilst you're paying off the loan. So this is a way of reducing the running costs from day one for the electricity user.
And do you have anyone who's a buyer and a seller?
Pardon?
Do you have anyone who's both a buyer and a seller?
Yes. Yeah, the school bought into their own solar plant. The solar installation company that's doing the install for Thai Corp also bought into it. But that's what we would hope, because the employees and the stakeholders of a business want their business to be sustainable. So they can, by an employee putting money into their own business, they're increasing the likelihood that their job's going to be safeguarded because they've reduced the overheads of their business. So that's how it's a much more open, inclusive platform, which is why we've reduced to the cell level is 105 Rand a cell, which makes it totally open to anybody, even on a low income, could hopefully afford 105 Rand solar cell. So you could have someone in a community for a rural electrification project buying a single solar cell in their solar plant alongside an institutional fund in the United States, and they're both getting the same return. So it's a completely non-discriminatory platform.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Typically, what kind of return are your investors enjoying?
Well, they're not actually investors because they're owners. They're purchasing a solar asset. It's the income stream they get is equivalent to, we always target for them to get what would be equivalent to a 10% annual return or internal rate of return, and it's over a 20-year period.
Okay, about 10%. And let's assume that one of the sites didn't honor their contract with you.
Mm-hmm.
would that mean that there would be no return?
If they don't honour their contract, they lose the supply of electricity. The smart contract will turn off their power. There's an incentive for them to keep paying it. And likewise, the electricity they would otherwise have is more expensive, or they may not have a backup. So there is an incentive for them to keep paying. But at the end of the day, because it's because they've got multiple projects on our platform, our response to someone such as yourself who may have concerns about that is, well, you can buy, sell them multiple projects, mitigate your own risk by, okay, so well, I'm going to put 1,000 rand into a wildlife rehabilitation centre. That factory is probably quite a safe project, and we provide all the information for you to do your own due diligence to determine what risk exposure you as a person are willing to take.
Thank you.
Thank you. You got the mic?
Hi. Thanks for your presentation. I really enjoyed it.
Yep. We can hear you. It's great. It's on.
But instead of just solar panels, have you guys maybe had a look at like CSP technologies as well?
Yeah, and the CSP projects are all utility-based. They're typically about 100 megawatts. They're very, very capital intensive because they incorporate mirrors, steam turbines, and power. And those projects are getting funded by large international banks. That's fine. They're getting funded, and it's great, and they're selling to utilities. Those projects are getting funded. They're not in a funding gap, so we have no need to participate in them.
And then, sorry, another question. Would you guys be willing to take on sort of people that are doing niche products in terms of solar power and then allow to sponsor those projects?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this platform is for projects that would be unfundable in a traditional sense, and it's up to the world to democratically decide whether they want to fund that project. So if there's a new piece of technology that would like to get deployed, we could theoretically, depending it to make it, as long as it can fit within our model and that people can actually buy an asset and lease it on, then we could look at a new type of technology.
Hey.
Yes. Oh, hey. Robert.
Yeah, thanks for your talk. It's really inspiring to see how far your company has gotten over such a short time.
Thanks.
You showed that beautiful picture of the burning Boeing 777,
Yeah.
which I really liked because they lack onboard Wi-Fi mostly. You use that to make a point about like the energy household of Bitcoin, which I think Bitcoin's still justified, but I don't think we discussed this in detail. What are your thoughts on, instead of having something like Bitcoin, we have a proof of work that churns out the energy for the great purpose of verifying transactions, but rather using currencies that use scientific computations purely, so to redirect that energy like Curecoin or to plug myself Gridcoin.
Yeah. Well, we want to use Bitcoin because it's a store of value, and it's much more predictable. It's got the mass adoption. So for now, I think Bitcoin is the most applicable technology for getting value transferred from one place to another. If an alternative comes that's better than that, then we'll certainly switch.
So, on the one hand, I don't think there needs to be a switch. You can have those in parallel, but I mean, it's your company's decision. But also, your transfer of value is very short-term, and these currencies are typically stable. They're not as liquid as Bitcoin, I agree. But it is the perfect match conceptually for...
Yeah. Well, it's more. I guess it's more about the acquisition of those tokens. So if you were to go to, I know, CoinFloor in the UK to buy Bitcoin to send over here, your only choice is Bitcoin.
So once the liquidity improves for those currencies, do they become viable?
Of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
We're not determined on Bitcoin specifically. It's just it is the best solution for what we're trying to do right now. Lisa, you got a
Take one on
question.
the side, Adrian. Thanks, Ray. First.
The demo was in Ethereum.
Pardon?
The demo was Ethereum.
Yes.
You were doing Ether around.
That's right.
How does that match with that?
Okay, so the Singularity smart contract, which we're running on Ethereum, can be run on the Bitcoin blockchain using Rootstock. And we're going to be using that as soon as it becomes available.
Adrian? And then we'll last one in the middle. Adrian, you next.
Very quick question. How are you funding the storage? So you know,
Yeah,
with
there's
solar,
no
normally
storage.
So it's just direct.
Not in these applications, they're grid-tied systems, and we size the solar plant specifically to their consumption. So there's no surplus and there's no export. We are about to launch a microgrid project in Lesotho, which is going to electrify 200 homes, 3 schools, and several small businesses. That will have a storage facility because they're not connected to the grid. So in that instance, there will be storage.
Hi. So in South Africa, we tend to like to destroy things that don't belong to governments when we're not happy with governments. So in terms of strikes, damage, etc., just hail damage, for example, who takes the risk?
In terms of, sorry, in terms of is this damage to
Just
the
damage
infrastructure?
to-
It's
yeah.
insured for fire, theft, and damage. All of our solar plants are insured.
Hi, thank you very
okay.
much.
Can I ask last question, please?
Yep, sure. Fire away.
Hi, very inspiring. I just wanted to ask you something about the solar coin. You said that's
Yeah.
optional extra.
It's not optional. It's yours if you invest in a solar plant, then you got it.
So is there any return that one enjoys as a sort of a holder of that coin?
Yeah, each solar coin is currently worth 10 US cents. And if you run a solar coin wallet, you actually get interest on any solar coin you hold. So it's up to do what you wish with it, because it's your token. You can trade it on an exchange, on Bittrex or whatever, or you can just hold it. It's up
Has
to
it
you.
shown traction around the world? I mean, obviously, it's used for other projects like, or other companies like
Yes,
yours.
I think SolarCoin's got one of the biggest volumes of all digital tokens. And we would expect the whole point in that. I mean, we're the affiliate of the SolarCoin program for South Africa, so that's why we distribute them. But the whole point in that is that it actually becomes an incentive, a global incentive to replace government-driven incentives. Because if the solar coin price goes up and up and up, people will be installing solar panels just to get SolarCoin because it pays for itself, and that's the kind of the idea behind it.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Sorry, last question, please, if I may. Sorry, I had a
sorry,
question.
last one. Okay, very last one.
Abraham, I need you to
last
answer the question,
question,
please.
Where is the question?
Yeah.
Straight up the line.
Right,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, firstly, thanks for your talk. I appreciate that it was outside the financial industry and you're showing how you're making a difference using blockchain in another industry. So how do you choose your projects, and how does one get in contact with you if we have ideas where we can...
On our website, there's actually a submit a project button, so you can submit a project to it. But it has to be a project that's already... the only reason why it hasn't been installed yet is because of lack of money. So you can't come to us with a project that you've got an idea or you want to find out how to install it. It has to be a project ready to go. So projects that we do come to us from installers, solar installation companies that have got projects they want to install, or from project developer that has got everything they need to go, but they don't have the money.
Okay, and how does the Sun Exchange actually make a profit out of...
We charge a success fee on each project that we host. So if it's a $1 million RAM project, we'll raise 1.1 million, and that covers our marketing costs. And we actually do a lot of technical due diligence on each project. We don't just host any project willy-nilly. We actually unwrap it, provide legal documentation, do industry standard validation on the energy economics, install metering. We actually really do a good job on making sure the project is going to offer the yield that we estimate.
All right, thanks.
Right, thanks, Ron.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.